Tonight we have team coverage as we follow the investigation into how a driver plunged off the Parkway East into the Mon River.
KDK's Ricky Sayer.
On a cold Thursday evening in Pittsburgh, January 30th, 2026, Jacinta Stevens was driving home during rush hour. She had no idea that within minutes, her Ford Explorer would plunge 120, feet off the Parkway East and into the icy Monongahela River below. By the time rescuers pulled her from the freezing water after nearly an hour of submersion, it was already too late. What happened in those final moments? Why did her car suddenly veer off the highway? And why did almost nobody call for help? If cases like this keep you up at night, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and don't forget to click that bell icon so you never miss a shadow crime upload. Trust me, you'll want to stay for this one. Let me tell you about Jacinta Stevens. She was only 31 years old, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. Jacinta wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was a mother, a daughter, a granddaughter. She had family that loved her deeply. She worked as a housing specialist for the Housing Authority of the city of Pittsburgh, a job she'd only had for about 2 months but was already making an impact in. Before that, she'd been navigating life like so many of us do, working hard, raising her kids, try to build something meaningful. But here's the thing about Jacinta that really gets me. She was also a model, not just someone who took a few photos here and there, but someone who was actually making waves in Pittsburgh's fashion community. Friends describe her as talented, encouraging, and someone who lit up every room she walked into. Her fashion designer friend, Eva Dixon, had worked with her for 3 years and said Jacinta was beautiful inside and out. She was funny. She was warm. She had dreams. And those dreams were getting bigger. Jacinta had just landed an opportunity to model in New York City. Can you imagine? New York, the big time. She was excited, hopeful, ready to take that next step. This wasn't just some pipe dream either. This was real. This was happening. If you go back and look at her social media, her last Facebook post is haunting now. She wrote, "Your life when they don't like you is the same life when they don't. Keep living happy." Those words hit different knowing what happened next, don't they? She was focused on living her life, staying positive, not letting negativity bring her down. She was determined to be happy. Jacinta also had roots in her community. She went to Peabody High School, played volleyball, and was part of their championship team back in 2010. People remembered her. People loved her. She wasn't just passing through life. She was present in it, making connections, building relationships, being there for people. So when January 30th rolled around, it was just another Thursday for Jacinta, just another day at work, just another evening commute home through Pittsburgh's winter streets.
Tonight we have team coverage as we follow the investigation into how a driver plunged off the Parkway East into the Mon River.
KDK's Ricky Sayer talks with divers who broke through the ice to reach Jacinta Stevens. But first, Ross Gadati with details from investigators.
Investigators say that they do believe they know how Jacinta Stevens' SUV ended up in the Monongahela River, but they don't necessarily know why. The video is haunting. Dive teams and other first responders trying to pull Jacinta Stevens from her vehicle after it plunged off the Parkway East between downtown and the Oakland exit. Investigators say they believe they know what happened first.
She lost control of that vehicle in that left lane of travel. The vehicle then exits all the way over to the right side of the road, so that's southern portion of 376.
Moments later, law enforcement say heavy packed snow on the side of the road acted almost like a frozen ramp. Investigators say Stevens likely rode the snowbank for some distance.
And then she travels over the concrete barrier and then falls approximately, with all the technology and drones we had last night, we estimate that to be 120 feet of a drop, and then straight into the river.
2 people under the overpass saw the car hit the water. With no cell phones, the 2 ran up onto 2nd Avenue to hail a car to call 911. Stevens was pulled from the water, and resuscitation attempts were made at the scene, but she was later pronounced dead at UPMC Presbyterian. The focus now is to recover Stevens' vehicle to see what, if any, clues can be gained by its retrieval.
The tows are ready to go with the operation, but it's the fact of the tows don't have diving teams. So that's a collaborative effort to hook the car underneath the water when it's safe to do so for the diving team.
Jacinta Stevens, or Cinna as she was known, leaves behind a child and a large extended family. Her last post on her Facebook account was one of hope and perseverance. She wrote, quote, "Your life when they like you is the same life when they don't. Keep living happy." Ross Gadati, KDKA TV News.
So again, investigators say that divers pulled Jacinta Stevens from the driver's seat after her car sank into the icy water, but she died a short time later at the hospital.
Those divers say while the frigid waters pose an extreme danger, in some cases they may also preserve someone's chance for survival. Ricky Sayer continues our team coverage now.
Despite being underwater for roughly an hour, the woman whose car went off the Parkway East still had a chance of survival.
There's cases of 60 minutes to 90 minutes where people have been recovered from cold water with no deficits at all.
Paramedic Crew Chief Eric Capitz was one of the divers at the scene Thursday afternoon.
Cold water is a hindrance to the diver, but it's a blessing for the victim. It extends their chance of survival because the oxygen demand goes down. So if we could get a victim under the water, very cold water out, up to, I would say, 90 minutes, maybe even 2 hours, there's a chance we can bring them back.
But in this instance, that wasn't the case. He said the car was heavily damaged, but right side up in what the city's EMS chief said was about 20 feet of water. They opened the door, took the victim to the surface, where they began CPR as they took her to the hospital, where she was later pronounced dead. The dive team is based here next to PNC Park at the River Rescue Boathouse. They have multiple boats here, but told us it didn't make sense to use them, partially because of how thick the ice was and because of how close this was to the side of the river.
That was a unique experience. Yeah, that's a unique one. A lot of challenges. You got to set up a rope system to recover the victim, a rope system to lower divers down. It made it challenging.
Underwater, Capitz said at 4 feet, visibility was excellent. 2 divers were involved in the first dive to rescue the victim. He was part of a solo second dive to make sure there were no additional victims or vehicles. One complicating factor, the ice above them.
So if in a case of an emergency, the diver could not come up because there's an ice cap. That's the most dangerous aspect of it. That and the cold water. Your core temperature stays pretty warm. But your hands, you lose a lot of dexterity in your fingers, which makes retrieving a victim very difficult. Opening doors, securing the victim, things like that with the cold water.
Reporting on the Allegheny River, Ricky Sayer, KDK TV News.
But something went terribly wrong that evening around 4:30 p.m. Picture this. Rush hour traffic on Interstate 376, the Parkway East. Cars everywhere. People trying to get home after a long day at work. The roads were covered in snow and ice, typical Pittsburgh winter conditions. Jacinta was driving outbound, heading home just like hundreds of other commuters that evening. Then, without warning, she lost control of her Ford Explorer. Now here's where things get crazy. She didn't just slide off the road. She veered from the left lane all the way across 3 lanes of traffic. Think about that for a second. 3 entire lanes. Her vehicle hit a massive snowbank, nearly 6 feet tall, that had built up along the concrete barrier. And this is the part that still sends chills down my spine. That snowbank acted like a frozen ramp. Her car literally rode up that wall of packed snow and ice, traveling along it for some distance before going airborne over the concrete barrier. Can you even imagine what that must have felt like? One moment you're driving home, the next you're airborne, falling, and falling, and falling 120 feet down into the freezing Monongahela River. Let me put that height into perspective for you. That's basically a 12-story building. Her car felt equivalent of a 12-story building and crashed through 5 inches of surface ice before sinking into the dark, freezing water below. The impact was so violent that when divers later found the vehicle, they described it as pretty beat up and crumpled. Now here's something that absolutely blows my mind about this whole situation. 2 people witnessed Jacinta's car crash through the ice into the river. They saw it happen right in front of their eyes from under Parkway East. But get this, they didn't have cell phones on them to call 911. They had to physically run and flag down help on 2nd Avenue. In today's world, where almost everyone has a phone, these two witnesses didn't. And apparently, hardly anyone else saw what happened either, because authorities say they only received one main 911 call about this crash. One call for a car plunging off a highway into a river during rush hour. How is that even possible? Where was everyone? Were people not paying attention? Did they think someone else would call? Were they too focused on their own commute to notice? This part really bothers me because every second mattered. By the time emergency responders were dispatched at approximately 4:36 p.m., Jacinta had already been in that freezing water for several minutes. Pennsylvania State Police didn't arrive until 5:14 p.m. Do the math on that. We're talking about precious time ticking away while Jacinta was trapped in her vehicle underwater, surrounded by ice-cold water in complete darkness. When first responders finally arrived, they faced an incredibly dangerous rescue operation. About 50 people showed up to help, including EMS, police, multiple fire bureaus, and specialized dive teams. 6 divers from Pittsburgh River Rescue had to break through that 5-inch thick surface ice just to get into the water. The temperature was brutal. The conditions were treacherous.
Jacinta Stevens was 31 years old. She grew up right here in Pittsburgh, and her friends tell me she attended the former Peabody High School. They say she was a kind person, a mother, and she was making her mark in modeling.
She had such a promising future. She was very talented. So it's just sad to see all that cut short because it's someone I think that could have went really, really far in her profession.
Tony Bazemore Jr. worked with Jacinta Stevens on the runway and sitting together for photo shoots. He called her cool and fun, a description that comes across in these photos another friend shared with me. Bazemore Jr. says when he heard it was Jacinta Stevens' car that went off the Parkway into the Mon River Thursday, and that the kind, talented mother didn't survive, he immediately felt the loss and sadness for her family.
I would want to say to her family, you have my sincerest condolences. She was a very amazing person, and, to the other people that, I worked with that also worked with her, my heart's with you. And, hopefully, everyone that's been hurt by this situation, we could, get through this together. Hopefully everyone can move forward. I know this is going to be a tough time, but I just want to say, my prayers are with everybody.
So far, funeral arrangements for Jacinta Stevens have not been released. Covering Allegheny County from the East Liberty neighborhood of Pittsburgh, Marcy Cipriani, Pittsburgh's Action News.
They found Jacinta's vehicle about 5 feet from the retaining wall, submerged in roughly 20 feet of water. The divers worked frantically, using a rope system with something called a Stokes basket that they lowered into the water. They harnessed Jacinta inside and hoisted her up to the surface. By this point, she'd been underwater for somewhere between 40 to 60 minutes. Let that sink in. An entire hour in freezing water, trapped in a mangled vehicle. The rescue team immediately started CPR on her. They rushed her to the hospital, but the damage was done. Just after 9 p.m. that same evening, Jacinta Stevens was pronounced dead. A young mother, a talented model with a New York opportunity waiting for her, a woman who'd written just days before about living happy, was gone. Now the divers didn't stop there. They actually went back down for a second dive to make absolutely sure there was nobody else in that vehicle. Can you imagine the horror if they'd missed someone? But it was just Jacinta, alone in that car. Alone in those final moments. So what actually caused this? That's the question everyone wants answered. And honestly, we still don't have a clear answer. Pennsylvania State Police are investigating everything. They're looking at potential car problems. Maybe something mechanical failed. They're examining the ice and snow conditions on the Parkway East. Was the road just too dangerous that day? They're even testing for alcohol, which is standard procedure in any fatal crash, though there's currently no evidence that impairment was involved. Investigators pulled footage from cameras in the area. They're asking anyone who was driving on that stretch of highway between 5 o'clock and 5:30 p.m. to come forward. If you saw Jacinta's Ford Explorer, if you were behind her or in front of her, if you noticed anything strange about how she was driving or about the road conditions, Pennsylvania State Police need to hear from you. The number is 412-299-1607. But here's what really haunts me about this whole thing. Her vehicle is still in that river. They haven't recovered it yet for full examination. So many questions remain unanswered. The cause and manner of death are still officially under investigation. The Pittsburgh community has been devastated. Eva Dixon, that fashion designer who worked with Jacinta for 3 years, announced she's creating a scholarship in Jacinta's name. People are remembering her warmth, her humor, her kindness. She had her whole future ahead of her. So let me ask you something. Why did almost nobody call 911? In a city full of people, during rush hour traffic, how does a car fly off a highway into a river and almost nobody reports it? What does that say about us as a society? Are we so disconnected, so focused on our own lives, that we miss these critical moments happening right in front of us? And what really caused Jacinta to lose control? Was it truly just the ice and snow? Was there a mechanical failure nobody saw coming? Or was there something else? Some other factor we haven't uncovered yet? Will we ever really know what happened in those final seconds before a car left the road? Think about your own daily commute. How many times have you driven distracted? How many times have you passed someone who might have needed help and just kept going? Jacinta's story is a reminder that life can change in an instant. One moment you're heading home, thinking about dinner or tomorrow's plans, and the next, everything's gone. If this case moved you, if it made you think, do me a favor, share this video. Let's get Jacinta's story out there. Let's remind people pay attention, to call for help when they see something wrong, to not assume someone else will do it. Hit that like button, drop a comment below telling me what you think happened, and subscribe to Shadow Crime for more cases that need to be heard. Justice for Jacinta starts with awareness. Let's make sure her story isn't forgotten.